Hello everyone. I just wanted to do the book to movie comparison for Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. And I could nitpick so many things for the differences, but I only picked out some main ones, but still probably pretty lengthy. So in the beginning, Fudge meets with the Prime Minister, and then they introduce a new Minister of Magic. And there's a whole spiel with that. And then Dumbledore came to the Dursleys and brought Cretchen, who feels that Bellatrix is his rightful mistress, but then confirms that Harry is the rightful owner of Grimmauld Place, and Harry sends Cretchen to Hogwarts to work in the kitchen with the other house elves, and Buckbeak stays with Hagrid, because that was settling Sirius's estate. And Dumbledore tells him to keep his cloak with him at all times, and that he's going to start lessons with him. And Dumbledore actually came to the Weasleys to drop off Harry. He didn't stay there long, but he left. And Tonks was here, and she left quickly as well. And they knew that Harry was coming just later in the day, unlike the movie. And in the book, they started asking each other questions to confirm each other's identity, and that was seen with Mr. and Mrs. Weasley. And Flora was there, and she was annoying Ginny, and we find out that Flora is engaged to Bill, and Bill brought her in to get to know the family better. And Mrs. Weasley wasn't thrilled with Flora. She thought it was too fast. And Tonks seems to be blaming herself for Sirius's death. And they do get the OWL results. And while on vacation, Hermione and Ron and Harry and Ginny all played 2-on-2 Quidditch. And they discover that Ollivander is missing, and Lupin visits on Harry's birthday, and they find out that Harry is Quidditch captain. And when the trio goes into the dress robe shop in Diagon Alley, Malfoy and his mom are in there, and Narcissa and Harry have a run-in, among other things. And the three actually use the invisibility cloak to follow just Malfoy, not Malfoy and his mom. And they did that to avoid not being followed themselves, because they had extra protection in Diagon Alley because of Harry. And they follow Malfoy to Berlin Books. And they used the extendable ears, and Hermione actually went in to try to find out what Malfoy told the shop owner not to sell. But it didn't work. And on the train, there was an invite sent to Neville and Harry to join Slughorn for lunch on the train. And Tonks found Harry under the invisibility cloak, not Luna. And Tonks is actually stationed there. And it was just Snape that came down to let them in. And in the movie, it was kind of poked fun at, but McGonagall actually was advising the Gryffindor the 6th years on scheduling. And it was nicely done. And Snape is teaching defense against dark arts, and you actually see a little bit of that in the book. And then in the book, Dumbledore and Harry look at many more memories, which help explain the Horcruxes more, and help explain Tom Riddle more. And I wish that would have been in the book. And Stan Stunpike, who worked on the night bus, he was arrested falsely, and that's a big deal in the book. Also, Lavender clearly has a crush on Ron, and she's brought up many more times in the book than in the movie. And Hagrid said that the trio didn't take his class, and that Aragog was sick and probably dying, and in the movie we only saw the little bit at the end. And Dumbledore is often missing at mealtimes, weirdly. And at Christmas time, Harry went home with Ron, which is also seen in the movie, but in the book, Greyback, they talk about how Greyback wanted to create werewolves, and Voldemort supports this, which I think is significant. And Percy actually showed up with the Minister of Magic. It wasn't Percy's idea, but the Minister claimed it was. Actually, the Minister wanted to speak to Harry, and Dumbledore has always prevented that, so that was his way in. He wanted to know what Dumbledore told him, and Harry told Harry that he's a sign of hope, and he wants him to stand alongside the Ministry, and other ones want for the Ministry, and Haley won't stand for being used and what the Ministry and magic is doing, so he says no. He is Dumbledore's man through and through. And in the book, the Weasley's house did not burn down, and the 2 Death Eaters did not come, even though I did like that battle scene in the book. In the movie, I mean. There's actually apparition lessons, and they pass for that. And then, also in the lessons, they learn to speak, and they learn to non-verbally do spells with their wands, which isn't shown in the movie too well. They just kind of transition without explanation. And after Ron was in the hospital, Fred and George, Mr. and Mrs. Weasley, they all came to see Ron after the whole incident. And Haley came too. And during that time, McLaggen and Lavender were driving Haley nuts. And Ron pretends to be asleep when Lavender comes in to visit. And then Luna Lovegood is a commentator for Quidditch sometimes, which was amusing in the book, and I wish it would have been in the movie. And then Haley ended up in the hospital wing with a cracked skull. He also has Creature of the Tail Malfoy to find out what's going on, and Dobby comes along and he won't tolerate Creature's disrespect for Haley, and Dobby also offers to help too. And then they've kind of discovered that Malfoy's been sneaking off to the Room of Requirement. And it was Ron's idea to use the Felix Felicis potion to get Slughorn's memory. And Slughorn was at the greenhouse to get stuff from Professor Sprout for potions. And in the movie, it kind of showed him being a little bit shady, possibly. And Haley didn't take the entire potion, just a capful. And most importantly, I felt like there was more emphasis in the book on the Horcruxes and what they could be. In the book, Dumbledore and Haley have a conversation with the ring, the diary, and then possibly the locket, the Hufflepuff cuff, and then something from Gryffindor or the Ravenclaw, an item, and then the snake, Nagini, Dumbledore thinks. And that was clearly in the books and would have helped explain it better in the movies, I wish. And Dumbledore's been searching for them, and Haley has to come too, and Dumbledore says yes. Voldemort himself created his worst enemy, Haley. Throughout the book, Haley clearly has a crush on Ginny, but he worries about Ron and how Ron will handle it. And then, interesting, Moaning Myrtle has been talking a few times with a crying Malfoy. And Snape used occlumency to see how Haley used the dark magic that he did in that battle scene in the bathroom. And he told him to bring his school bag, and he brought back Ron's book, and he hid his book in the Room of Requirement himself, not Ginny hiding it there. And Snape doesn't believe it, so he gives him about 12 detentions on Saturdays, so he has to miss Quidditch. And McGonagall chewed him out too. Luckily, Gryffindor did win the House Cup. And then that's when Haley kissed... Don't mind my kitty. He moves the screen. So that's when Haley kissed Ginny, and there seems to be more of them, like, as a relationship kind of in the book. And then, also, for the explanation of the cave, sorry, the cat's just going to stand in. Anyway, the cave is where Tom Riddle told the 2 kids he lived with at the orphanage. So that was, like, significant to him. And before Haley leaves, he gives the rest of the Felix potion to Ron and Hermione and tell them to share it with Ginny. And to keep an eye on Malfoy with the map, and he knows something's going to go down. And they actually listen to him, luckily. And they actually apparated to Hogsmeade, to Rose Manita, and when they were coming back. And Rose Manita pointed out the Duntmunk that was in the sky, and they took brooms from her. And Dumbledore asked Rose Manita to contact the Ministry. And Dumbledore actually disarmed Haley. And he was under the invisibility cloak. And in the movie, he is just told to hide below. And I still like the whole Snape, like, telling him to be quiet as he walks past the scene in the movie. And then in the book, we find out that Rose Mantle was under the Imperius Curse, and she was the one that helped Malfoy try to get the necklace to Dumbledore, and then poisoning the mead that was meant to go to Dumbledore. And one thing I wish they would have included in the movie is how some members of the Order of the Phoenix had battles with other Death Eaters at Hogwarts too. While the whole astronomy totem scene was going on, there was a battle that included Ginny, Ron, Neville, Tonks, McGonagall, Lupin. They were all fighting Death Eaters. And Hagrid was actually trying to stop the Death Eaters from running. And Fang was in the house, in the hut, when they lit it on fire. And then it was Haley and Hagrid who put the fires out. And Hagrid didn't believe that Dumbledore was dead. He thought Haley just hit his head and was messed up. And then we find out that Bill was also fighting, and he's alive, but he was attacked by Greyback, a werewolf, which never ever got explained in the books. And then Flitwick was hurt, and the Felix potion helped the ones fighting the Death Eaters, and they didn't know that Dumbledore was dead. And Fawkes was singing his lament, and no one could believe that Snape did it. They still thought there was something missing from the picture. And Dumbledore had just told them to patrol while he was gone, and Ronnie, Ginny, and Neville had kind of watched by the room of the requirement, but then Malfoy had set off black dust, and they felt people walking past them, but they couldn't see who it was. Meanwhile, Hermione and Luna were watching Snape's office, and Flitwick had came to get Snape to get help, and then all of a sudden they heard something, and then Snape told them that Flitwick collapsed and to take care of him. And Mrs. and Mrs. Weasley and Flora came to see Bill, and after Flora says she'll still love Bill and wants to marry him, Mrs. Weasley's like, oh, all is alright, and she is happy that even though he's been bitten, Flora still wants to marry him. And this whole thing was kind of danced at in the book, but not in the movie. That Tonks says, like, see, that love does happen, and you can tell she's in love with Lupin in the book, but it's not displayed in the movie. In the movie, it's kind of like they're almost dating already, nonchalantly. I wish they would have made a bigger deal of that in the movie. And McGonagall takes charge, and she asks Haley to privately where the two went, but he won't tell her. But he does tell her about Rose Mantle. And then McGonagall consults whether or not they should close the school with Sprout, Slughorn, Hagrid, and Flitwick. And Haley was still there. And they decide to have a funeral for Dumbledore, and then the students can go home. And many people came. Lupin and Tonks were holding hands. There was Infinity, many people, the Centaurs, they all came to pay their respects. And Haley tells Ginny that we can't be together. You'll just be in danger. And Ron was holding Hermione at the funeral. And the minister wants information from Haley and offers protection with the ministry, which Haley just laughs off. And what I love about the movie is, like, the opening scene with the whole bridge collapse and everything. It brings everything to life. In the diner scene, even though it wasn't in the book, it was still comical. And I loved how Weasley's joke shop was portrayed. And I liked the Quidditch tryouts and the awkward moments such as Haley and Ron talking about nice skin and other moments like that. And then the moment when Haley somewhat comforts Hermione after Lavender kisses Ron. And I like the whole hospital wing scene, which wasn't in the book, but how Ron had sent Hermione and Lavender just left. I like that scene in the movie. And I also think I like book Ginny better than the movie Ginny. I think the book Ginny is smarter, and in the movie one I just feel like she's kind of like a pretty face. They don't give her too much depth, sadly. I mean, some, but not that much. And I like the comedic moments in the movie, such as the pinches. And I really like the cave scene. And I thought that light tribute with the light at the end of the wands, tribute to Dumbledore, was just so powerful. And I also liked how conflicted they showed Malfoy in the film. So overall, I really liked this one, as always. I mean, obviously I'll give the book 5 stars. And I really like how the movie was too. I wish they would have included more of Hogwarts, of Dumbledore's lessons. And like I said, I can't nitpick every single difference, but those are the ones that stood out to me. Alright, thanks for watching and have a great day.